Welcome to my third British touring car preview and prediction show. Today we're looking towards Brands Hatch, which is the next round of this season's British Touring Car Championship. We've just finished Sutton. It was a very interesting round. I'm your host Louis Hedge from Hedgeworks Motorsport. On today's show we hear from circuit commentator Alan Hyde on what it was like for fans to be back at Snetterton and his predictions for Brands Hatch. Speaking of predictions, we've also got the Fans Predictions Show, where we hear what my fellow British touring car fans have got to say about the upcoming event. And to finish, we hear what ITV Motorsport commentator David Addison has to say about Brands Hatch, which is coming up next. Now, Addison was absolutely brilliant. The racing was exciting as it always is in British touring cars. And another great thing about it, fans were back. It was great to be back trackside, seeing the action up close, seeing the racing again. And another big talking point was Colin Turkington really did bounce back after quite a rocky first round at Thruxton. Inherited pole position after Gordon Shedden was disqualified in qualifying and won race one pretty comfortably. But I think a lot of people were talking about Ash Sutton. Difficult qualifying with engine problems. Difficult race one, didn't make too much progress. He got sort of stuck in a lot of traffic. But race 2 and 3, he was very quick. One race 2, as we know, had a brilliant charge through the field. And what was even more interesting, he finished second in race 3, maximum ballast, from starting in the pack, somewhere 7th or somewhere down there. So that is very interesting. That puts him leading the championship now, with Tom Ingram second after his race 3 win, and Turkington now jumps up to third. Josh Cook drops to 4th after quite a difficult weekend, and Jake Hill rounds out the top 5. Rory Butcher is 6th, followed by Stephen Jelly, and Jason Plato is 8th. Ollie Jackson is 9th, and Gordon Shedden rounds out the top 10 after his race 3 podium. So, you're probably wondering who we should be looking out for at Brands Hatch. Well, I'm going to say Jake Hill. Difficult weekend at Snetterton, but we always knew it was going to be quite tough with so much weight in the car. Who else? Gordon Shedden. We've said it every time so far now, I think, but he's had so much bad luck. Hopefully he's got it all out of the way at the start of the season, and he'll be able to come back. The Hondas run pretty well at Brands generally, and I think Tom Ingram, we'll have to see if the ballast affects his car too much, and Plato is going to want to bounce back after a pretty quiet round at Snetterton. Now, as you know, if you've probably seen my previous preview shows, this isn't just a video of me just talking. We've got some guests, so let's welcome our first guest. It's Alan Hyde, circuit commentator, and let's hear what he's got to say about Snetterton and, of course, Brands Hatch, which is coming up next. Welcome back, Alan Hyde. Thank you for joining me. Now, I'm sure you'd agree it was great to see fans back at Snetterton last time out.
You're not joking. It was amazing. And they do say, don't they? It's something that my mum used to say. That you don't realise what you've got until you don't have it anymore. And of course, ever since I've known racing, since I was a kid, there's always been a crowd. That I've never known a situation where there wasn't a crowd. I remember probably quite early in my commentary career, there was an outbreak of foot and mouth. And I was commentating at a meeting at Croft, and we had to drive the car through a sheep dip in order to go into the circuit, but we still had people there. So to have performed the way that the championship did last year without any crowd at all, it was surreal. And if you bear in mind that because of the job that I do, because I'm the stadium announcer, because I'm the circuit commentator or presenter, it's the people that are at the circuit that are my concern. They're close to my heart. So everything that I do with them in mind. So if there's a question of the TV interviews after a race and they go on a bit too long and I'm waiting to see the drivers, I'm the one that's saying, come on, we need to crack on because people need to hear from the drivers. So I'm always trying to champion the cause of the people that I'm talking to. So last year it was really difficult. Our only audience was the paddock and the online audience. So it was a different thing. My audience, our audience, was gone, because they're the people on the banks, the people that I talk to. So I felt bereft, and it didn't feel good when Ash Sutton won the championship and came back to a near silent Parc Ferme. We did the best that we could, and we cheered along and tried to do the best that we could for the atmosphere. It's a mega thing winning the championship, and to not have that support that we get from the fans. Well, we really noticed it last year, and at Thruxton this year we really noticed it. So to have fans back trackside, I did the little lap, a few laps of the circuit with Alan Gow in the morning, in his Porsche, and it was, well, we both commented it was about 7:30 in the morning, and already people were set up in their chairs by the fence, and it was just a lovely feeling, quite an emotional feeling actually, to see the championship sort of back to what we do. We're so geared up for the fans that are trackside, with all the things that we do. If we can do a driver parade, or the pit lane walkabout, all of those kind of things, it's all geared up to the fact that we've got mega fans, and to allow drivers to see them and to be with them is what we're all about.
I think us fans were definitely treated for some good racing. The weather was quite warm as well, but Colin Turkington, I'm sure you'd agree, he really bounced back after quite a difficult Thruxton.
Yeah, it wasn't easy, but he knows what it is to start a season that isn't sort of spot on. He's had that quite a few times before. But yeah, you're right. He absolutely bounced back. He was the proper sportsman as well. When I asked him what were his feelings when he found out that Flash had lost pole position, and he said, "Well, I'll never take any pleasure from somebody else's misfortune." So, as a really nice answer, he's a thoroughly good bloke. We're jolly lucky to have him. He's a proper sportsman. He totally is. So yeah, it was good to see Colin bounce back. Strange that we had the sort of midfield running in qualifying for the BTC racing cars after such a strong opening meeting at Thruxton. That sort of perplexed me a little bit. I think it perplexed Josh Cook when I spoke to him, that it wasn't what was expected. The way the weight works this year, I mean, 75 kilos for either leading the championship at the start of the meeting or for winning the previous race is it is massive. I mean, and the idea is that it is massive. So the idea of that would be that it doesn't. So you don't get race because he starts a bowl. That's the whole idea of the 75 kilos, and occasionally it doesn't work. So, for example, Josh was able to win both races at the first two races at Thruxton. That's quite rare. With 75 kilos, that's more than Colin Turkington sat alongside you. That's considerably more than Colin Turkington sitting alongside you. So it really does hamper things. But it was the bounce back of Colin Turkington, the note of intent from Ash Sutton. I mean, just mega, isn't he? Absolutely fantastic. The car is good. He's good. And also, the other thing is you do get a good idea of how good they are when you compare it to the fact that the other drivers, their teammates that are driving the same car, are not able to extract quite as much from the car as Ash and Colin are able to do. and make it look easy. It's not easy. You know, you can't just you can't just say that oh, it's definitely the best car. You know, Collins is the best car, so he'll win the championship. Ash is in the best car, he'll win the championship. They've all got really good teammates, and if the teammates aren't extracting quite as much from the car as that driver, as Ash or Colin, you realize just how good they are. It's fascinating to watch. But with those two multiple champions thus far, sort of battling out among with each other, it's wonderful to watch. And when they circuit, even better. It's just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. What was the question? I talk a lot, don't I?
No, it's all right. It's brilliant. We have a driver who obviously won a race, was Tom Ingram in that brilliant race 3 victory. First victory for Hyundai, first victory for Accelerate, and that must be really great to see. And I'm sure he'll be wanting to keep that up, keep up the momentum going into Brands Hatch next week.
Well, the proof is that he's come into a team. He was very at home in the team that he was with. He was with them for a long time, so that was a big break to almost leave a family and then go and join another family, and to make yourself comfortable with the car, get the car to where you want it to be, to do all of those things so quickly. And in only his second meeting to get a race win, absolutely fantastic. I mean, let us not underestimate what a big achievement that is. You know, that the team got their first podium with the car last year as a first year with a new car, which for a new team is pretty mega. But for a new driver to come in and then take a win in only his second meeting in that car, I think is astonishing. I mean, I would like to think that come the end of the year, Tingram is fighting not just on the periphery, but actually in the meat of the battle for the championship, and it would not be a surprise to me if by the end of the year he could potentially be champion. Maybe this it would be an amazing story. You know, first year in that car with that team, the team and you. But these things are possible. You know, these things are absolutely possible. We've seen it with Laser Tools previously. We saw it with BMR. That teams that are relatively new with a car can put everything together, put the right people in place, and take the championship. And you know, Tingram has got he's a class act from every aspect as well. It's not just the driving, and some of his maneuvers are inch perfect. They're fantastic to watch. But also he was still doing interviews half an hour after the final podium at Snetterton finished. He was still doing interviews, which is the full package. You know, you talk about drivers and they're the full package, and they do good interviews, and they're good to media, they're good to fans, they do good social media. All of these things go together to make the good package. He is the real deal. You know, to still, you know, journalists are queuing up to speak to him for websites or publications or whatever it may be, but to still be there half an hour after, mega, absolutely mega. He's a champion in waiting.
Absolutely. Well, final question. 2 drivers that had quite tough weekends, both Jake Hill and Jason Plater, who were flying at Thruxton. Do you think they're both going to be able to bounce back at Brands Hatch?
I'm sure they will. I mean, for JP, you never know when Jason is going to come back to the fore. You know, don't forget he won at the end of the season on the Brands Hatch in 2019, which was some would say surprising given what had led up to that point in the season. But he's a class act. He's a champion. He knows the game. He knows how to play the championship as well, and he could be back up there at any point during the year. And quite a few people that I spoke to at Thruxton said this is a really motivated Jason, and it kind of showed the way he drove at Thruxton. So that's something to be interested in and to watch with interest. The car is good, no doubt at all about the car. So everything needs to be equal at Brands Hatch, particularly if it's wet. It will be, everything equal and down to the driver. So he could, and Jake Hill for sure will, because it's his local circuit, means a lot to him to do well at Brands Hatch, and I'm sure he will. Bear in mind, he's also still fifth in the championship after two meetings. That consistency that he had, 3 podiums at Thruxton, was ultra consistent, and if he can do that throughout the season and capitalize on making the most of points in every round and not have DNFs like he had at the start of last year, which means that your championship year is kind of done going into the second half of the year if you've had DNFs. So just that consistent point scoring that Ash and Colin do so well, then Jake potentially could be like I said with Tingram, at the end of the season he could be either on the periphery or well involved in the battle for the championship, which would be great, wouldn't it? To particularly, I always get excited at the idea of having a new champion, somebody that hasn't been champion before. So the prospect that potentially, certainly at this point in the year, you could say that Josh could be champion this year, Jake could be champion this year, Tom Ingram could be champion this year. There's quite a few that have yet to take their first title. So never write off how much that hunger for the first title will affect as the year goes on. They've been around the championship for a few years. They know how to piece together a championship. Don't forget, Colin, a couple of years ago, he won a championship and he only won one race. Yeah. In 30 races, he only won one race.
Consistency. Well, thank you.
That's the name of the game.
Alan, so very much. It's been great to catch up. It's great to hear, your thoughts on Brands Hatch. It's going to be an interesting one, especially if the weather is, like you said, it's going to be wet. It's going to be very interesting. And, well, of course, enjoy the racing. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Louis. Always a pleasure.
Well, thank you very much, Alan Hyde, for coming on the show and having a chat. It's always great to catch up. And, yeah, it was great to hear your thoughts about Snetterton and, obviously, Brands Hatch. And speaking of predictions, we've got more predictions coming up next in the fans prediction segment. This is the part of the show where my fellow British touring car fans come on the show and, well, we make some predictions and, well, let's see how many are going to be correct. Here they are. So, what's your name?
Alan Hyde.
My name is Rich from the Hyde Compound.
My name is Dominic.
I'm Harry.
David Addison.
My name is Hayley Bristow.
And who was your driver of the day at Snetterton?
I've gone for Tom Ingram because I think I was sort of on the same page as Matt Neal, thinking he'll get a few wins, but not this early on in the season.
Driver of the day at Snetterton, Tom Ingram.
Oh, it's got to be Ingram, absolutely. Qualifying was amazing. Race 1, race 2, race 3 winner, Tom Ingram.
I've gone for Ash Sutton. Absolutely superb drives from difficult places on the grid. All the laser infinities did very well. That's sort of been forgotten, I think, but Ash was head and shoulders above the rest.
Oh, good question. Can I have more than one?
Oh, I think Lloyd was close, but for me, it's got to be Jelly.
Tingram.
And who was your biggest surprise of Snetterton?
The biggest surprise at Snetterton, Jelly.
I've put Team Dynamics. I didn't expect them to struggle so much on the was it the medium tyre they struggled on? Yeah.
Biggest surprise of Snetterton.
For me, I was expecting such a big day from Plato, and it was so disappointing. So that was the biggest surprise for me.
Quite a big surprise. I thought Plato was actually going to score more points and do better than he did. So yeah, they were my surprises really.
Okay, well, the biggest surprise of Snetterton was Flash getting pole position and then having it taken away from him, because it was mega. He needed a good weekend after, welcoming him back, and then to lose pole position and then have to climb back. At least he got a podium out of the weekend, which was great. But
Jason Plato, because of the fact that there was such a disparity between where he was at Thruxton and where he was at Snetterton.
I've gone for Adam Morgan. I think nothing against Adam, but obviously his first year in rear-wheel drive. It's only his 4th, 5th and 6th races in the new car. And to get 6th, 8th and 8th was very impressive.
Cool. Who's going to be on pole at Brands Hatch?
I've gone for Jason Plato. I think the Vauxhalls have come really strong at Brands Indy. I don't know why, but I'll give it a crack.
Crikey, that is hard.
Ash Sutton.
Gordon Shedden, very unlucky at Snetterton. Didn't get the breaks with the scrutineering. I think he's going to go well at Brands.
The person that I think is going to be on pole at Brands Hatch is Ash Sutton.
As far as I can see from my weather forecast, it's going to be wet all week. We've clearly had summer. Summer has been and gone. We've got the longest day this week, so the days are now going to get shorter and shorter. So basically, we're into winter. We are now in the winter. We're in the winter season, and I'm just trying to stave off the possibility that you're going to need an answer from me.
Possibly Butcher, but I think Ingram's going to have it.
I'll go Flash.
And who's going to win race 1?
Ingram.
I think there's going to be a bit of drama, and I think Dan Lloyd will come through, win first race.
I'm going to stick with Flash, just ahead of Ash.
I'll go Flash.
But I think it's still going to be Sutton.
Ash Sutton.
And who is most likely to win more than one race at Brands Hatch?
I'm going to go Dan Lloyd again. I think he'll have great first race, bit of a mediocre second, win the third.
I don't think anyone will win more than one race at Brands Hatch.
I don't think anyone's going to win more than one race at Brands this weekend. But if it was, I think it would be Sutton.
I don't think anyone will, but I'm going to say if it's going to be anyone, Ash Sutton.
Sadly, Ingram again.
Ash Sutton.
Which driver will score the most championship points?
Now, this is a good point. So there are two drivers that do this exceptionally well, i.e. when they're not winning a race, they're just accumulating points, and they both know how to do it to win a championship. One is Colin and one is Ash.
Gordon Shedden.
I think it's probably, if he wins two races, I think it's going to be Ingram.
I think given how much he improved for Snetterton, Adam Morgan's going to do really well.
And for a consistent weekend for Tom Ingram, just shading it from Jake Hill.
Well, I think if, as I predicted, Sutton, I would love to think that Ingram would be up there with the points and Jake Hill, because he needs to keep up there with the front runners.
And which driver will be leading the championship after Brands?
Colin.
I think, well, if Ingram gets the points, I think it's going to be Ingram. And I think Rowbottom's pretty much got the Jack Sears sorted now.
Colin Turkington.
Tom Ingram.
The risk of jinxing him, Tom Ingram.
Oh, Sutton or Ingram? I think it's going to be Sutton, but I'd love it to be Ingram.
And what are you most looking forward to about Brands Hatch?
I'm looking forward to it being a different kind of racing session. Obviously, for me, I'll be watching at home on the TV. I was lucky enough to be at Snetterton trackside, but Snetterton's the longest circuit, so Brands Hatch Indy is very short, very quick. I think the weather could play a part in the racing, and yeah, just looking forward to watching the BTCC returning again at Brands Hatch.
I think, it's a short track, so some close racing, maybe some sort of crazy weather, and I've just got a feeling there's going to be somebody unexpected on the podium.
I'm looking forward to Jack Goff, because he always goes well round there, and I think Cooper, will get his first podium.
I'm looking forward to some changeable weather that's forecast, which should give us some fun tyre choices, some charges from the back, and even more closer racing than usual.
More close racing, because the Brands Hatch circuit always generates good close racing, so it'll be a weekend full of drama.
Snetterton was such an amazing weekend. It was amazing to be back there trackside. It must have been fantastic for all the drivers. Big, huge shout out, although, to the Snetterton marshals, who had such a hot and difficult job out in the blistering sun in extreme temperatures. So they deserve a huge round of applause and a big shout out to them.
Interview. As I
You
say,
realise, of course, that none of those predictions will come true. Every single one of those predictions is going to be incorrect, because if any of them were correct, then I would be a rich man, because I would be betting on every prediction I make. And the championship is just too difficult and it's too hard. Yeah, and that's what we love about it.
Thank you very much to all of my guests on the Fans Prediction Show. And if you'd like to get involved next time, just get in touch. It's always good fun to see how close we are with the predictions and stuff like that. But yeah, it's going to be interesting, Brands Hatch. And our final guest on the show is David Addison, ITV Motorsport commentator. So let's hear what he has to say about Brands Hatch. Welcome back, David Addison. Thank you for joining me. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you very much. Looking forward for another good weekend of touring car racing, because only now do we start to see any kind of pattern emerge, really. Thruxton was a bit of a lottery, strange circuit anyway, limited testing, very fast, and the weather, and then a long break. And then Snetterton, very different circuit, very different weather. Now we feel like we're getting into the season proper, with the events coming thick and fast.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've got Brands Hatch next, but I was going to start by asking you, what were your highlights of Snetterton?
I think one actually was to see how well Tom Ingram did in the Hyundai and make history by taking a first win for the brand and a first win for Accelerate as a team. He's been very confident, not overly, but very confident that he's made the right decision to go to a new team and a new car. And the shape, even though it's a hatchback, it's quite a long, a stretched hatchback. He's described it as being a bit like the Avensis was, just in terms of the shape. Not as boxy as the Corolla or as the BMW 1 Series, for example, before it. So I think the shape is helping, but in a very short space of time, he gelled with the team. he and Spencer Aldridge, his engineer, have worked really well to bring that car on. So I think to see that, have a win so early in the year, and for a new team as well, that's really good, because it does show the championship that you can come in and work your way to the front. You know, you've seen it with BTC, you've seen it with Speedworks, you've seen it with others, and now Accelerate is doing exactly the same thing.
Absolutely. Well, we've got Brands Hatch next. It's obviously a very short circuit. Would you say it favours any cars in particular?
It's hard to say, really, because any evidence that we've had of previous years could be undone now by the weight being heavier. And I think the weight probably plays more of an impact because you've got that long climb, steep climb up towards Druid. So coming out of Paddock and then that really steep right up to the hairpin. You know, what did we see last year? Well, the Indy circuit was wet, but it was rear-wheel drive cars that were going pretty well. So I'd expect to see the BMWs and the Infiniti up there. The thing is, you know, the top teams now can pretty much be at the front, whether it's a front or a rear-wheel drive circuit. So they've got the data, they've got the expertise to be up there. I would still think it will be a BMW versus Infiniti day on Sunday, but you throw into that, again, the Hyundai, Fords, which went well last year at Brands, and the Toyota.
Absolutely. Well, Ingram was on pole last year, obviously in the Toyota. Do you think he'll be able to replicate that this season?
Yes, I think he can, because he's not yet loaded up with weight, is he? So the car is competitive, but by winning race 3, you know, he got a bit of extra championship weight, but he's not leading the championship, so he's not fully laden with the weight. But equally, having said all of that, a lot of it in qualifying is getting a clear lap, because it is a short lap, as you say, and with a full grid, timing it is absolutely essential. So you could have the best setup, the best car, and just encounter a slow back marker, a slow car, or somebody about to start a flying lap at the wrong time, and it all goes against you. So there's an element of luck in it, but with the team on the pit wall looking at where other cars are, you could be able to make your own luck.
Absolutely. Well, a big talking point as well at Snetterton was how quick Ash Sutton was, in particular in race 2 and race 3. Do you think he'll be able to keep up that momentum? Now, he's leading the championship, so obviously he has got a heavy car, but do you think he'll be able to keep that up?
I think it's going to be as easy at Brands Hatch because of the nature of the circuit. I think race 1, he will not do quite so well, potentially, shed some weight. We'll see. But if he can start from pole position, he's got the racecraft to be able to keep people behind him. You know, Ash isn't one to roll over and go for points. That's not his style, which is why we like watching him. So it's going to be a fascinating one to watch. I think he probably can. If he qualifies well, he might be able to keep people behind him. Depends what people do with an option tyre as well, and what the weather is going to be like. But he's certainly got the racecraft to keep people at bay. If he can stack the drivers behind him into a battle, might be able to get away. It all comes down to qualifying, I think, for Ash, and how well he carries the weight in the qualifying session.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be interesting. Now, I was going to ask you, Ollie Jackson, you know, difficult first round at Thruxton, got some good points at Snetterton. Do you think we should be looking out for him at Brands Hatch? He qualified well there last year. So yeah, do you think we should be looking out for him?
Yes, I don't know necessarily for wins, but certainly for podiums. I mean, he is a far, far better prospect than he was 18 months ago. You know, last year he was one of the standout drivers. He was the surprise of the season in a good way because he had those 2 wins, and it's inevitable. The more miles you do, the better you get. But clearly something has now clicked. Something has been unlocked within Ollie, and it's as much confidence as anything, as well as racecraft, that he is now able to run at the front and look good there. So yes, can you put his name down for race wins? It's possible. Certainly a race 3 win, but I think he should be there or thereabouts, like we saw at Snetterton, you know, within the leading 6, fighting for podiums. That is definitely on the cards, yes.
Well, it's going to be interesting. That Motorbase Ford looks very strong again. But my final question really is, do you think Gordon Shedden will finally have some good luck and just have a smooth weekend, really?
Well, he needs to. That's a slightly different answer, I accept, but he does need to. Who knows? Because this is the British Touring Car Championship. Whatever plan you come to the day with can all go out the window. You know, that lap in qualifying at Snetterton looked fantastic, and just a bit of finger trouble from a mechanic, which gave the car more downforce, which is what they didn't need. And you start at the back, it can all go out the window. So yeah, he needs to put a good weekend together. He's got the ability to do it. The car's got the pace. There's no reason why he shouldn't have a good weekend, but so much of it comes down to qualifying. So in a sense, free practice will take on even more importance, because they've got to get the cars absolutely right early on in the day, so they're not still tweaking in qualifying. They've got to be right as soon as the lights go green for qualifying and get the time in. Keep out of trouble, keep out of the traffic. That's a long answer to say, yes, on paper, Gordon can have a good trouble-free weekend. But again, part of that is qualifying well and being ahead of all of the accidents, all of the trouble for the first couple of corners of race one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's going to be very interesting. Thank you very much for coming on the show and having a chat. And of course, enjoy Brands Hatch.
Sure I will. It'll be, like I say, 3 more good races, and hopefully we can have a few more surprises as well.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much. Well, thank you very much to David Addison. It was great to hear your thoughts about the upcoming races, and that is all we've got time for today. Thank you very much to all my guests. Thank you very much to Alan Hyde, David Addison. Thank you to all my fans prediction guests. Thank you for watching as well. Thank you for subscribing if you have done. If you haven't already, please do. We recently hit 100 subscribers, which was a great achievement for me. Hopefully, I hope you all enjoy Brands Hatch. We're going to have some great racing. It's going to be interesting, as it always is. I've been your host, Louis Hedge. Thank you very much.